You see, when I was a kid, I was really bullied a lot, and I found that if I was Anakin, then they wouldn't really bother me as much.
Change? It did not.
Ladies and gentlemen and slummy viewers, welcome back to a brand new YouTube video, and in today's video we're going to be catching up with our good old pal Star Wars Theory. Now in today's video we're going to be covering two things. One, a little bit of controversy he found himself in on his own channel, and then recently a podcast that he went on. Starting with the smaller topic, Star Wars Theory recently got in a bit of hot water on his own channel because he clickbaited a video. I know, truly shocking stuff. In the thumbnail, Star Wars Theory had AI generated a picture of him and George Lucas together, and captioned the video something like, "I met George Lucas," or "I flew to meet George Lucas," or something like that, before changing the title to be clickbait thumbnail. Look, I've made my views on AI very clear. One thing I will say about this, I think it's very funny that he's AI generated a picture of himself with George Lucas because he really admires and likes the guy that much that he thought, you know what would pull numbers is if I AI generate a picture of me and George Lucas and throw it in the thumbnail. And I mean, just from taking a look at the comments, his audience were not very happy whatsoever. People were upset that he clickbaited his loyal audience, that he decided to do this because he's money hungry. Some people complained the fact that he was using AI in the thumbnails, and some people just went on long rants about Star Wars Theory. Theory, what happened to you? Used to be the voice of Star Wars fans, someone who got it, who cared about the story, the characters of the universe. Now you become everything you once stood against. A soulless content mill pumping out clickbait trash wrapped in overproduced thumbnails and stretched intros to hawk your overpriced sabers. Your videos aren't Star Wars anymore. They're about squeezing every last drop of a dying algorithm. Your thumbnails scream fake hype, your titles are borderline dishonest, and the content itself is shallow recycled nonsense padded to 10 minutes just to shill. The passion is gone and it's obvious. The numbers on your videos speak for itself. I don't say this as a hater, I say it as someone who used to genuinely admire your passion, but now I'd rather watch Vader's Order, Darth Theorist, or literally anyone else who still gives a damn. What an unbelievably pathetic thumbnail, not even just for its clickbaity nature, but to actually create a fake image of yourself meeting George Lucas is legitimate creepy, obsessive stan behaviour that you see in movies. Yeah, I think it's safe to say that people weren't very happy with his AI thumbnail that's clickbait, and honestly, look, I don't care about clickbait. I don't think anybody should give a shit about clickbait. It's just funny here. It's funny that his AI generated a picture of himself with George Lucas and slapped that in the thumbnail and thought, yeah, that looks enticing. Well, ladies and gentlemen, like I said towards the beginning of the video, we've got more to talk about because I'm not just going to make an entire video talking about a clickbait thumbnail where some people got a bit angry, right? I'm not that low for content. But, ladies and gentlemen, recently Star Wars Theory went on a podcast. I want to say right here, I don't condone any harassment on this podcast. We're not really going to be talking about the podcast itself. We're talking about Star Wars Theory, right? And what he has to say on this podcast. There will be a few critiques that go towards this podcast, but that does not give you the right to go over and harass these people. They're podcasters, they're getting the questions, they're just talking to a guest. It's fair game, and this channel is fairly new, so I am trying to be just a little bit more charitable than I usually would.
With Star Wars.
Yeah.
And that includes sequel fans. That includes any other fan. And I'll never be one to say like, oh, you're not a real Star Wars fan.
I mean, Star Wars Theory in the past has spoken about how people aren't true Star Wars fans. Maybe not because of the movies that they like, but that is something that he consistently spoken about in the past. That they're not true Star Wars fans, or that they don't understand it because they haven't read the things that he's read.
I find YouTubers to be much more personable. Well, except, I shouldn't say that because there's a lot of really arrogant ones.
Not only is it very obvious that Star Wars Theory is somebody who is incredibly arrogant, but as well, I find it even more funny because my first ever video that I made on Star Wars Theory, across his eyes, I just put a giant in caps, arrogant.
What does it sound like? I'm curious. No pressure. No pressure. No, I put all the pressure.
Put me on the spot, eh?
I'd like to hear all of them, but you can just...
You can do it.
You can do it whenever you
do it as
want,
we go.
but
Yeah.
Just start talking randomly in a
mid-conversation, you just
Okay,
break
Well,
out
blink
with
an
it.
eye.
Well, you see, when I was a kid, I was really bullied a lot, and I found that if I was Anakin, then they wouldn't really bother me as much.
Change? It did not. They still bullied. Bastards they were.
Look, it's a harmless clip, right? He's doing an Anakin, and then he's doing a Yoda voice. It's funny, right? Pretty harmless. There's something. He's talking about being bullied, right? When he was younger, right? That's not nice, right? No one deserves to be bullied when they're younger, within reason. We're not going to judge that. We're not going to critique that. I just want to know why you'd birth that clip, doing those voices while talking about being bullied. Like, surely those are just going to get clipped up, right? And that's just going to be, like, used against you, and people are going to make fun of you for that, right? I just don't know why you'd want to do that. Also, because I can already feel the comments, yes, I've said right a lot in that sentence. It's because I'm tired. I realise when I'm more tired, I say right a lot, so ignore me, please.
Season 2 of Andor.
And Yeah. Andor was, I didn't like the first three, but
Yeah.
people were just like, you have to watch it. I'm like, all right. And Roger Christian
Yeah.
was like, trust me, once you get to episode 7, it's different.
Yeah.
So I
That's what I've
finally got
heard.
my way to episode 7, and then episode 8 until the end is where it was actually,
Yeah.
they did a good job. I
Okay.
can't say anything about it. So, nothing bad.
It was really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you did.
It's funny, right? Your opinion does tend to change on something when you actually give it a chance and watch the full thing, and you can actually voice your opinions properly because you've seen the thing you're trying to critique.
See
Super
it,
slow
right?
the first, like you said, up to
Yeah.
episode 7. And
That's
then-
what my other sister said too. Except she said she liked the slowness of the beginning.
Interesting.
So yeah. I mean, everyone has opinions on it. So.
Different strokes, different folks, I guess, yeah.
Mhm.
They like different things, so...
Yeah.
Yeah, those first 3 were like not it for me, but then when I came back and was like, whoa, this is actually
Yeah.
quite amazing.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll have to give those a go.
Yeah, you could even just skip ahead to episode 8.
This is something he said when he reviewed Andor after he'd officially watched it. Now, I got a lot of comments why I didn't bring up the fact that he told people to skip. Now, quite frankly, I don't give a shit. It's not a big deal. It's really not a big issue. It's not something controversial that I need to point out. Yeah, it's funny that he's telling people to basically just skip over the show so you have no idea what's going on, but you'll get to the good bits. Yeah, it's funny, but that's all it is.
Wasn't about, oh, you're this, that, and the other thing because you like the prequels or you hate the prequels. It was more so about, well, how do you explain Yoda being this disoriented, like, little frog in episode 5 to being this really coherent, like, smart, savvy, jumping around like crazy and fighting Dooku? How do you explain that? And what, it all happens within like 20, 30 years? No, come on. That was the argument. Whereas now today it's not even
All
about
kinds
Star
of-
Wars. It's about
A lot of
politics.
accusations. Yeah.
Yeah, it's mumbo jumbo. I don't agree with it.
I mean, he says that, like, the reason that he's seeing all that or being involved in those type of conversations isn't because he's putting that type of content out there and engaging with said type of conversations. Those conversations still happen. You can still find loads of them. It's still widely spoken about on places like Twitter, on YouTube, people giving theories, people talking about that, people having these types of conversations. It's just because you surround yourself in this more toxic environment and you yourself are a toxic content creator. So yes, you are going to see that more, accusation-based stuff, or what he was about to say is, I believe, politics.
But yeah, back then it was at least on, like, it was about Star Wars, and
yeah.
it was much more fun,
Right.
much more enjoyable conversations. Even the disagreements that would get heated, it was like, oh, you don't know anything about Star Wars. It would be
Right.
like that.
Yeah,
know?
exactly.
Yeah.
And I feel like
It
it's more common now because of just social media, like that. Now everybody can share their opinion so easily, even if they're not necessarily as into Star Wars, and they just want to make an accusation against you.
I'm being charitable. I'm being charitable to this podcast. I'm being charitable to this podcast. You don't have to really be into Star Wars or be really obsessed with Star Wars to be able to critique something that Star Wars Theory has said. You can openly talk about one of his views and disagree with it, even if you're not that into Star Wars. I'm somebody who likes Star Wars. I collect Star Wars things, but I'm not somebody who is reading Star Wars comics. I'm maybe not that into Star Wars in that degree, but I can still critique something that he has said about Star Wars or just things in general. There are going to be people that have no idea about anything Star Wars that are going to critique a lot of things that Star Wars Theory says because he says a lot of things that aren't particularly Star Wars related. I mean, even when he is talking about Star Wars, take the essay stuff with Andor, for example, somebody who's never seen Star Wars can also talk about that and critique that because by that point, yes, it's about Star Wars, but we're not talking about the mythos.
Because of something, it's more accessible to people to be able to do that. I just to be able to do that. So
No, yeah, you're right. Absolutely right. It's it is what it is. You gotta roll with it and understand that a lot of the people making these kinds of claims, I don't think are even the biggest Star Wars fans. Not that they're not, but I just don't think that they're like how it was in the old days, where you lived and breathed and talked about Star Wars, and you just really cared about the story so much. At least the first, 4 films, 5 films, 6, and back in the day, being a Star Wars fan was like, if you were a Star Wars fan, you were not popular.
I don't know why he keeps with his narrative, because he's trying to make himself out to be some, victim, right? When I was younger, right, there wasn't many Star Wars fans, and, we weren't very popular because we were Star Wars fans. He grew up during the prequel era, right? There were lots of Star Wars fans. It was incredibly, insanely popular at the time. This is just a flat-out lie.
You did not have a girlfriend. You did not get invited to parties, and back in the 2000s, house parties were pretty cool. So you wouldn't, yeah, you didn't really have friends. The friends you had were like you, kind of outcasts from the popular crew.
Fair enough theory, but I don't think every single Star Wars fan during when you grew up didn't have any friends, or didn't have a girlfriend, or were never invited to parties, or were outcasts, as he said here. Acting like Star Wars fans at this period of time were like blacklisted. They were outcasts of society. Nobody would talk to them. Nobody would interact with them because they were like these creatures, when he's just couldn't be further from the truth. It kind of feels like to me he's saying all these things that maybe he struggled with or went through as a kid, and being a Star Wars fan, he's kind of just generalized it to all Star Wars fans at the time to cope and deal with what he dealt with when he was younger.
And you would all hang out on a Saturday night ordering pizza and playing video games type of thing, which to me was the best. That was awesome. But at the time, you want to kind of explore, and you want to be a little bit popular and meet people and meet friends and stuff like that. But if you were not a closet Star Wars fan, then you definitely weren't. You embraced it.
Just switch being a Star Wars fan to being gay during this time period, because that's how he's talking like.
You were like, you know what? I'm a nerd. This is me. And it was a quintessential, like, shut up, nerd. Or like, no one likes you, nerd. That kind of thing.
Right.
That's what it was like. Whereas today, it's like, it's like fashionable to be a nerd.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people like fake being a nerd, either for like, I don't know, attention, or to be edgy, or to be different, or
Right.
For money. You see a lot of that today.
How do you determine that somebody's doing it for money, or they're a fake nerd? And I don't think anybody is choosing to be a nerd online to be edgy. Just don't think that's the case.
I've heard so many things about you before I looked into it, but the biggest one was probably just like Star Wars theory hates Star Wars.
Yeah.
That was like the biggest thing, and I was like, I've heard this guy is like insanely popular and has a lot of views. I highly doubt he hates Star Wars.
A lot of people do believe that Star Wars theory hates at least the newer Star Wars stuff pretty heavily, because he only usually has negative things to say about it and has a very clear bias and agenda against the brand new Star Wars stuff. So people just say that they do believe that Star Wars theory hates Star Wars, maybe more as a joking thing or as a genuine critique towards how Star Wars theory currently acts. I also wouldn't say that just because he gets like a ton of views and he's got a ton of subscribers would mean that he doesn't hate Star Wars in any capacity whatsoever. That doesn't like disprove the argument. You can hate something and still talk about it and still have lots of subscribers and numbers. Like, you can literally love something and talk about how you love it so much and you can have like 2 subscribers. So that doesn't mean you hate it.
And just things that he hated this show, and it was just a lot of people just saying you hated things, So then I watch your videos and I'm like, what the heck? Like, he's doing a whole lore video about something. I'm like, I'm pretty sure this guy is pretty passionate about it. So
Yeah.
just things like that.
Well, okay. What are some of the other things you can use? These are going to be clips that you're going to use, and I could use them.
Let me think.
I mean, I'll say, like, I didn't really care to watch your videos until I learned more about you, because I've always listened to what a lot of other people said about you, and that was like, oh, he, like you said, like, he hates Star Wars, like, he doesn't like any of the new stuff because it's, it's gone woke, or it's got its completely different agenda. And so I was like, okay, I guess he's just hypercritical about everything and I won't watch. But it's like, I kind of also agree with those things.
These are very, like, surface level critiques on Star Wars theory. I mean, there are loads of now big videos talking about Star Wars theory, critiquing the things he said, his history on the platform. There's actual critiques there above, oh, he doesn't like Star Wars, or, oh, he doesn't agree with Star Wars, or, oh, he thinks it's gone woke. There's actual stuff to critique there, just, that's very surface level.
And so it's so strange to see how many people will hate on one person because they're not afraid to say, like, what they believe, or, like, their opinion.
People aren't just critiquing him because he has an opinion or he's not afraid to say things. That's not why people are critiquing him. People's critiques against him aren't, oh yeah, you're not afraid to say things and you have an opinion. It's what those opinions are. People talk about them. People critique them because that's within their right. And if you want to call that quote-unquote hate, that is what it is. But if you put something out there on the online sphere, you put it out into the world and people don't necessarily agree, or they've got a different take or want to critique what you've said, that's fair game because you publicly put that out there.
Which is rooted in facts.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which I think that's where the biggest amount of controversies come up when we hear about you is like if you're watching something and you're like, oh, I wasn't a fan of that, but I loved this.
Right.
People will just take the you weren't a fan of this and just blow it out of proportion. And like the bricks and screws, thing that went around, like I was like, oh my gosh.
I mean, the bricks and screws thing was because it was just ludicrous. It was incredibly funny, and it was basically just like a flat-out lie.
It's in their best interest to blow it out of proportion so they can get
Right.
views. Because
Yeah.
unfortunately, nobody watches their content unless I'm in the thumbnail or in the title.
A few things to say here, right? One, I love that his little ego's coming out here again, and of course you're going to have people in situations that do take things out of context, that do blow things out of proportion, but a lot of the time the critiques against Star Wars Theory aren't blown out of proportion, they aren't taken out of context. Lots of people play the full clips, lots of people talk about the full entire situation and don't blow it out of proportion, and still have things to say towards him and critique him about.
And if they don't make a clip that's, out of context and cuts out all the other explanations of things, then, they won't get those
Right.
views.
Exactly.
So it's in their best interest to spin some sort of a narrative so that they get those views, and it's really
Yeah.
unfortunate. But the good thing about the internet is that everything's always there in the sense that they can go back and watch the original if they really want to do that.
His Star Wars Theory is just simply generalizing every single person who's ever critiqued him or said anything bad about him as people that have blown things out of proportion, people that have taken things out of context because they want to frame a narrative, because they are disingenuous and they want something to get views about. And he's doing this to shield himself from any criticism or backlash, because if he can live in this denial state of just telling people that, all the haters and all these people are just taking things out of context, blowing out of proportion, he doesn't have to worry about it whatsoever. And I do find it kind of funny that the podcast here is just agreeing. Just no thoughts, just agreeing. Do you find it funny that Star Wars Theory is still trying to push this narrative that all the people that are criticizing him are just people that are taking things out of context, people that are overblowing situations, people being disingenuous, when even that comment there is to shield himself from criticism and backlash, and that there is being disingenuous and taking what other people are saying out of context and being disingenuous about it. But thank you everybody for watching today's YouTube video. That's all I have to say about Star Wars Theory, and again, please don't go and send over any hate to that podcast. It's just simply unnecessary and unwelcomed. But if you did enjoy, please consider liking, subscribing, watch it, and then you might as well comment down below your thoughts. But I've been your host Samuel, and I will catch you in the next slop pick. Goodbye.